Hi, thanks for tuning in. My name is Jordan Winter, and I'm the digital editor for Commercial Baking. In this Tech Talk, I'm going to be diving into sustainable packaging with Ron Cardey, Senior VP of Customer Engagement for Kwik Lok, and Emily Tipaldo, Executive Director of the US Plastics Pact. We are all so excited to learn more about the amazing work that your two organizations are doing together. So I'll just hand things over to you and let you explain the story behind the partnership.
Well, I'll start. It really started at Kwik Lok a little over 6 years ago. We had a generational shift in ownership, and we moved from the second generation to the third generation, who are the three granddaughters of the founder of the company. And as we were making that transition, as a company, we recognized that sustainability was becoming increasingly important and that it wasn't going away, that it was the future. And we, as a plastics company, we knew that we had to be part of the solution and not just part of the pollution. And so we took it upon ourselves to begin to learn and to research and to look at those organizations that we thought could really help us in our educational. And we just kind of started to show up at some of these events. And what we found is organizations like the US Plastics Pact had a wide swath of people involved, and it was very collaborative. And so we found that, you know, I don't want to say liberating, but it was very educational for us, and they allowed us to share our experiences as well.
The pact is unique in that it brings together stakeholders across the plastic packaging value chain, and is inclusive of sort of corporate partners and businesses all down throughout the value chain, but also a lot of not-for-profit entities who have an interest, whether it's research organizations or public sector entities is another sort of awesome inclusion that's a little bit different than some of the other groups out there. So we have cities participating, some state representatives, sort of to bring in their experience dealing with materials management and goals around sustainability and recycling. So it is unique in bringing all of those players together. And I think also to Ron's point, starting to look at not only what are companies doing individually and how can they maximize some of those efforts, but then for the bigger systematic things, how can we do things together sort of collaboratively to help meet both corporate sustainability goals as well as the Pact's targets?
I think we're really starting to see a shift towards sustainability, not just because of the pandemic, but with the exponential curve of climate change, and everyone has a role to play, not just individually, but to your point, Emily, together. And the pandemic especially has underscored the necessity of companies to reduce their carbon footprint, but there's still so much more to learn. So I'd love to hear how this partnership not only educates the industry on sustainability, but also provides a workable model for bakeries that are wanting to improve sustainability in their operations.
Well, again, one of the great things about the Plastics Pact is that it includes some of the largest CPG companies in the world, along with some of the largest retailers in the world. Now, as Kwik Lok, we're one of the smaller members, but our voice is still heard. It's that collaboration. And as we know as bakers, bakers play a vital role in the food chain. And it's important that bakers get involved in this and have a voice at the table and not be left behind. So many times in the past, bakers have often been surprised by new regulations that have been forced upon them. And what the US Plastic Pact allows is for bakers to be part of the process.
It's so inspiring to hear about that kind of momentum, and especially when you see, oh, I can start small, even though it's such an intimidating large issue, you really have to take it down to that ground level. So what kind of progress have you already seen with the industry becoming aware of, but also implementing these measures? And how do those small impacts actually make those ripple effects into the larger issue of climate change?
Sure. Well, I would say over the last 12 months, the level of serious conversation in the baking industry has moved exponentially. So when we launched our first sustainable closure a little over 2 years ago, it was like a trickle. And it feels a whole lot more like a tsunami these days. The conversations are more meaningful, and everyone is kind of drinking from the fire hose, trying to unpack all of this information and make the best business decision for their business today. I mean, I think we all know that over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, this is going to be like an amoeba, just shifting and changing. And there are people working on technologies we don't even know what they are that could have huge, huge changes. And what we like to say is, different people in different segments, in different geographies are at different places on the sustainability spectrum today, but at least they're on the spectrum. And that's where we have to get people, is on that spectrum, and then we'll all start making the journey together.
Yeah, and I think, Ron, too, and you've probably seen this, is like it's also this realization that while everyone needs to make their own business decisions, a lot of the challenges are very similar. So I think there's a tendency for companies to kind of feel alone, or that they're experiencing something and it's hard to kind of see your way out of it. But most likely another company has experienced something very similar. And so I think part of what the Pact is trying to do is to provide case studies and guidance to be able to show companies how small things can be done that start to move things along. I think, it's important not to undervalue even some of the small things, because then you can show sort of quick action and progress and keep people's momentum up and not sort of get dismayed by whatever else is going on, but showing that you can make progress and keep going, keep pushing things. So it's funny because I even came into this sort of with the assumption that some of the bigger multinationals on the consumer goods companies side had it all figured out, but that's not necessarily the case. They have great R&D benches and a lot of investment put into different solution sets, but there are still lots of unanswered questions. So I mean, this isn't something that's relegated to small and medium-sized businesses. I think, companies sort of across the spectrum are still very much looking for, well, what have others tried? What works? What hasn't worked? Why hasn't it worked? So being able to have that space and test things out is one thing that we're trying to do.
And I think that's a great transition into my next question, which is kind of the call to action. How can bakers get involved? What are some of the first steps to actually getting started?
I think it's going to be a journey of 1,000 steps. They have to take the first step. They have to, as an organization, decide what's relevant and important to them today. They have to do a lot of research. They have to reach out to their supplier partners because we're working on the same things they are. Trade associations, many of them in bakery, have set up sustainability committees. You have to take that first step. I mean, listen, a Kwik Lok is only the size of a quarter. So to Emily's point, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's all of those little things added up that are going to make a difference.
And what have you seen, Emily, not just with bakers, but about top decision makers across, companies in different sectors?
If companies today don't have their own sustainability goals that are inclusive of packaging and how they're delivering products to the market, I mean, that's a really great place to start.
No, absolutely. And it's a balancing act. As we move forward, there will never be a single solution to any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been at it for over 6 years. So to Emily's point, even with increased volumes, we have reduced our energy usage about 15%. Decreased rather. We've decreased our water usage. So trying to do a holistic approach to it and look at everything, not just the bag closure that we manufacture, but even that bag closure. You know, an average size bakery, if they switch from our standard to one of our more sustainable products, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions they save over the course of a year is the equivalent of driving between Mexico and Canada 6 times. Now that's something the size of a quarter. And so I think it's important, reduce plastic, recycle, reuse. But we like to also think that that solution, if it actually increases greenhouse gas emissions, then it's not a long-term solution. It might be a bridge to something, but you know, we've got to do it all in it, but we have to do it over time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is all interconnected, and this direction we're moving in, it's happening. So companies get to decide whether they want to be on the front lines and start to have that innovation and creativity, or fall behind and, you know, just get in line with everybody else when they're doing it. And I think Kwik Lok has one of those innovative solutions that is providing a model for people who want to get involved and create kind of a circular supply chain within their own operation.
And it's through working with people like the US Plastics Pact that we've been able to make this sort of progress. I mean, we've brought resources on in our innovation team. We're actually collaborating with universities on studies. You know, Emily was talking about some of these studies. We're working with universities to try and figure out the next generation. So it's, you know, for an old baker, it's kind of exciting. It's a very exciting time, and there are going to be a lot of turns and twists, and it's not going to be a smooth road, but it's going to happen.
This conversation has been very enlightening, and thank you so much for sharing some of the amazing things that you guys are doing to bring the bakery business into the future of sustainability.